What if I told you that your memories are lying to you? Not just in the small, insignificant ways we all experience. Forgetting where you put your keys or what you had for breakfast last Tuesday. I mean big things. Foundational things. What if I told you that millions of people around the world share vivid, detailed memories of events that, according to the history books, never actually happened? Think about it for a moment. That iconic movie line you quote with your friends? It might never have been said. The spelling of that childhood cartoon you loved? It might be completely different from how you remember it. Even the life and death of a global icon could be a shared, collective delusion. This isn't a trailer for a new sci-fi movie. This is a real phenomenon that's sweeping the internet and challenging our very understanding of reality. It's called the Mandela Effect. And in this video, we're going on a journey together. A journey into the deepest recesses of the human mind, into the strange and wonderful world of quantum physics, and into the heart of a mystery that might just make you question everything you think you know. So grab a drink, get comfortable, and prepare to have your mind blown. Because by the end of this, you'll be asking yourself, are my memories mine? Or are they echoes from a reality that no longer exists? Chapter 1. The Spark of a Phenomenon. Our story begins, fittingly, with a ghost. A ghost in the machine of our collective memory. His name was Nelson Mandela, a figure of immense global importance, a symbol of resistance, and eventually reconciliation. We all know the story, right? Imprisoned for 27 years, released in 1990, became the president of South Africa, and passed away in 2013, mourned by the entire world. A life well lived, a legacy cemented in history. But what if I told you that's not how thousands, perhaps millions, of people remember it? What if, for them, Nelson Mandela's story ended decades earlier, in a cold, lonely prison cell in the 1980s? This is where our journey truly begins, with a woman named Fiona Broome. Back in 2009, Fiona, who describes herself as a paranormal consultant, was at a convention, chatting with people, when the topic of Nelson Mandela came up. She casually mentioned his tragic death in prison back in the 80s. And to her surprise, others nodded in agreement. They remembered it too. They remembered the news reports, the international outcry, the emotional speech from his widow, Winnie Mandela. They shared a detailed, vivid memory of an event that, according to our timeline, simply never happened. Fiona was floored. This wasn't just a simple mistake. It was a shared, detailed, and emotionally charged memory held by a significant number of people who had no connection to each other. She started a website to explore this phenomenon, and soon, the floodgates opened. People from all over the world chimed in, not just about Mandela, but about a whole host of other discrepancies between their memories and the documented facts. It was in this crucible of shared bewilderment that Fiona Broome coined the term that would ignite a global conversation, the Mandela Effect. This wasn't just about one man's life anymore. It was about the integrity of our own. If so many people could be so wrong about something so significant, what else were we wrong about? The Mandela Effect wasn't just born, it was unleashed. And it began to make people wonder if the past was as set in stone as we'd always believed. Chapter 2. The Lies Our Minds Tell. So you might be thinking, okay, the Mandela thing is weird, but maybe it's a one-off. Well, buckle up, because we're about to dive down a rabbit hole of collective misremembering that will have you questioning your own childhood. The Mandela Effect is like a vast, sprawling tapestry of tiny, yet maddening inconsistencies. Let's play a little game. I'm going to show you some things, And I want you to be honest with yourself about how you remember them. First up, a beloved children's book series, The Berenstain Bears. How do you spell that name? Berenstain? That's how millions remember it. But if you go and look at any of the books, you'll find it's actually spelled Berenstain. People have vivid memories of the E version, and the it just looks wrong. Next, let's talk about the galaxy's most famous father-son duo. Picture the scene, Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker, the epic confrontation in The Empire Strikes Back. What does Vader say? "Luke, I am your father," right? It's one of the most quoted lines in cinema history. Go back and watch the clip. What he actually says is, "No, I am your father." The Luke part? It's not there. It never was. Mind-boggling, isn't it? And what about our favorite top-hatted tycoon, the Monopoly Man? Close your eyes and picture him. He's got the mustache, the cane, the money bags, and a monocle, right? Wrong. The Monopoly Man, rich Uncle Pennybags, has never, ever worn a monocle. Yet, countless people will swear they remember it, even drawing him with one as kids. The list goes on, and it gets stranger. Do you remember a 1990s movie called Shazam, starring the comedian Sinbad as a genie? People have detailed memories of the movie's plot, the VHS cover art, even specific scenes. The only problem? The movie doesn't exist. It was never made. Are you thinking of Kazam with Shaquille O'Neal? Proponents of the effect say no. This was a completely different film. From the color of C-3PO's leg in the original Star Wars trilogy, many remember him as being all gold, but one of his legs was silver, to the Queen in Snow White saying, "Mirror, mirror on the wall," she actually says, "Magic mirror on the wall." To the iconic brand Febreze being spelled Febreze in the memories of many, these discrepancies are everywhere. And they are so specific, so widely shared, that they beg the question, are we all just collectively bad at remembering things? Or is something far more profound going on? Chapter 3, The Malleable Mind, an introduction to the psychology of memory. Before we jump to conclusions about parallel universes and glitches in the Matrix, let's take a step back and look at the one thing at the center of all of this, our own minds. The truth is, your brain isn't a hard drive. It's not a video camera that records events with perfect fidelity. A better analogy would be to think of your memory as a Wikipedia page. You can go in and edit it, and so can other people. To understand why the Mandela Effect might be happening, we need a crash course in the psychology of memory. Memory is generally understood to work in 3 stages: encoding, storage, and retrieval. Encoding is the process of taking in information and converting it into a format that your brain can store. Storage is, well, storing that information. And retrieval is the act of pulling that information back out when you need it. Sounds simple enough, right? But here's the catch. Every single one of these stages is prone to error. When you encode a memory, you're not capturing every single detail. Your brain prioritizes certain things and discards others. When that memory is in storage, it's not just sitting there gathering dust. It can be influenced by other memories, by new information you learn, and even by your own biases and beliefs. And when you retrieve a memory, you're not just replaying a recording. You are actively reconstructing it. Think of it like building with Legos. You have the basic blocks of the memory, but each time you rebuild it, you might put a few blocks in a slightly different place, or even grab a block from a different set entirely. This is why our memories are so incredibly malleable, so susceptible to being shaped and reshaped over time. This isn't a flaw in our design, it's a feature. It allows us to be flexible, to learn, and to adapt. But it also opens the door to the very kinds of misremembering that define the Mandela Effect. So, are these shared false memories proof of an alternate reality? Or are they simply a testament to the beautifully imperfect and incredibly suggestible nature of the human mind? Chapter 4. Filling in the blanks. So, we know our memories are reconstructive. But how does that lead to so many people remembering the exact same wrong thing? Let's explore two powerful psychological concepts that provide a very compelling and very human explanation. The first is called confabulation. It sounds like a fancy word, but it's something our brains do all the time. Confabulation is the unconscious process of filling in the gaps in our memory with fabricated details that are plausible and coherent. Your brain hates a vacuum. When there's a missing piece of information, it doesn't just leave a blank space. It often creates something to fill that space, something that makes sense in the context of the memory. And the spooky part is, you're not aware you're doing it. To you, that fabricated detail feels just as real as the rest of the memory. Let's take the Luke, "I am your father" example. The actual line, "No, I am your father," is a direct response to Luke accusing Vader of killing his father. But over time, as we retell the story, as it becomes a cultural touchstone, our brains might clean it up. Adding the Luke makes it a more direct, more quotable line. It's a small logical jump, a tiny piece of confabulation that makes the memory more complete. And when this happens to millions of people, a collective false memory is born. The second concept is schema theory. A schema is a mental framework, a pre-existing set of expectations about the world. We have schemas for everything. What a library is like, how a birthday party unfolds, what a cartoon villain says. These schemas help us process information quickly and efficiently. But they can also lead us astray. Think about the Monopoly man. We have a schema for a Gilded Age tycoon. Top hat, suit, cane, and a monocle. A monocle just fits that image perfectly. So, even though it was never there, our brains might have added it in to fit our schema of what a character like that should look like. Our expectation literally overwrites the reality. When you combine the brain's tendency to fill in the gaps with plausible details, and its habit of making things fit our pre-existing mental models, you have a powerful recipe for the Mandela Effect, all without ever having to leave our own universe. Chapter 5. The Power of Suggestion. How misinformation shapes our memories. If our minds are already prone to making things up and fitting them into neat little boxes, what happens when you introduce an outside influence? The answer is that our memories can be surprisingly easy to manipulate. This is the power of suggestion, and it's one of the most well-documented phenomena in psychology. Think about how we consume information. We talk to friends, we read articles, we scroll through social media. If your friend confidently says, "Oh yeah, I remember that Sinbad genie movie, it was hilarious," that can plant seed. It's not that you're intentionally lying when you later remember to. It's that your brain has taken that suggestion and integrated it into your own memory. This is known as the misinformation effect. The pioneering work of psychologist Elizabeth Loftus in the 1970s showed just how powerful this can be. In her famous experiments, she would show participants footage of a car crash and then ask them questions about it. If she used the word smash to describe the accident, people were more likely to remember seeing broken glass, even when there was none. If she used the word hit, they were less likely to. The power of a single word could change a person's memory of an event. Now, imagine this on a massive scale. A popular blog post about the Berenstain Bears being spelled with an E goes viral. Suddenly, millions of people who had a vague, fuzzy memory of the book's title are presented with this very specific, very confident assertion. The suggestion is planted. They think back to their childhood, and that fuzzy memory starts to sharpen, but it sharpens around the new, incorrect information. They might even picture the E on the cover. Their brain, influenced by the power of suggestion, has created a false memory. It's not a glitch in reality. It's a feature of our social nature. We are creatures who are constantly influencing and being influenced by each other. And in the digital age, the power of suggestion is on steroids. Chapter 6. The Digital Echo Chamber. The Internet's Role in Amplifying the Effect. If the Mandela Effect was a spark in the pre-internet age, then the Internet was a vast, dry forest waiting for that spark to land. The rise of social media and online communities has been the single biggest catalyst for the spread and amplification of the Mandela Effect. Before, if you had a weird, false memory, you might have mentioned it to a few friends, been told you were wrong, and then forgotten about it. But now, you can go online and find thousands of people who share your exact same misremembering. This creates what's known as an echo chamber, or a digital campfire. You post on a forum, "Hey, does anyone else remember the Monopoly man having a monocle?" And within minutes, you have dozens of replies saying, "Yes, I remember that too." This validation is incredibly powerful. It reinforces your belief that your memory is correct and that the official record is wrong. The sheer volume of people agreeing with you can create a false consensus, making the memory feel more legitimate. Furthermore, the Internet is a breeding ground for the very misinformation we just talked about. A poorly researched blog post, a meme, a viral TikTok video. These can all spread incorrect information at lightning speed. And because we tend to trust information that is repeated frequently, we start to accept it as fact. The algorithm also plays a role. If you start searching for information about the Mandela Effect, the algorithms of platforms like YouTube and Google will start feeding you more of the same content. You get trapped in a feedback loop, a digital echo chamber, where the same false memories are repeated and reinforced over and over again, making them seem more and more real. The Internet hasn't just allowed us to discover the Mandela Effect. It has actively participated in its creation and spread. It has become a global real-time experiment in the formation of collective memory, and the results are both fascinating and a little bit terrifying. Chapter 7. That Familiar Feeling. So we have all these psychological explanations, all this evidence for why the Mandela Effect might be a trick of the mind. But that still doesn't explain one of the most intriguing aspects of this phenomenon: the fierce, passionate, and sometimes angry resistance people have to being corrected. Why is it that when you present someone with irrefutable proof, the actual movie clip, the book cover, the historical record, they will often double down, insisting that their memory is the one that's right and reality is what's wrong? The answer lies in a powerful psychological drive called cognitive dissonance. This is the mental discomfort we feel when we hold two or more contradictory beliefs, or when our beliefs clash with our actions. It's an uncomfortable, unsettling feeling, and our brains are highly motivated to reduce it. So, when you're faced with the fact that a deeply held memory is false, you have two choices. You can either accept that your memory is fallible, which can be a blow to your sense of self and your trust in your own mind, or you can reject the new information. You can decide that the evidence is fake, that there's a conspiracy, or that something far stranger, like a shift in reality, has occurred. For many people, it is less psychologically distressing to believe that reality itself has been altered than to accept that their own mind has deceived them. This isn't because they are foolish or irrational. It's because the need for cognitive consistency is a fundamental part of being human. Admitting our memories are wrong can feel like admitting a part of our personal history is a lie. So we cling to our false memories, not out of stubbornness, but as a defense mechanism to protect our sense of a stable and coherent self. The passion and conviction of Mandela Effect believers isn't necessarily proof of an alternate reality, but it is powerful evidence of the lengths our minds will go to avoid the uncomfortable truth of our own fallibility. Chapter 8. The Sinbad Genie Movie and Other Pop Culture Mysteries. Let's put on our detective hats and investigate one of the most compelling and baffling cases in the Mandela Effect files: the mystery of the non-existent Sinbad Genie movie. This is a pop culture ghost that haunts the memories of thousands of people. The collective memory is remarkably consistent. In the mid-1990s, the comedian Sinbad, at the height of his popularity, starred in a movie called Shazam, where he played a bumbling, hapless genie who grants wishes to two children. People remember the title, the star, the premise, and even specific details about the VHS cover art. The only problem? It never happened. Sinbad himself has repeatedly and humorously denied ever starring in such a film. Film archives have no record of it. There are no trailers, no posters, no reviews. It simply does not exist. So what is going on here? Is this definitive proof of an alternate timeline where Shazam was a blockbuster hit? Or can we explain it with the psychological tools we've been discussing? Let's look at the evidence for a psychological explanation. In 1996, the basketball star Shaquille O'Neal starred in a movie called Kazam, where he played a genie. The titles are similar. Both stars are large African-American men who were incredibly popular in the 90s. Sinbad often wore flamboyant, colorful outfits in his stand-up specials, which could be confused with genie attire. He also hosted a marathon of Sinbad the Sailor movies on TV, which could create a mental association between Sinbad and magical adventures. Could it be that our brains over the years have taken all these disparate elements, the Kazam movie, Sinbad's persona, the Sinbad the Sailor movies, and confabulated them into a single coherent but entirely false memory? A memory that then got spread and reinforced online? This is a prime example of schema theory in action. The idea of a Sinbad genie movie just feels right. It fits our schema of what a 90s family comedy would be. And for many, that feeling is more powerful than the absence of evidence. The Shazam mystery is a perfect microcosm of the Mandela Effect itself, a tantalizing, almost believable fiction that forces us to choose between the comfort of our memories and the cold, hard facts. Chapter 9. The Science of Misremembering. So far, we've talked a lot about the what and the why of the Mandela Effect from a psychological perspective. But let's zoom in even further, right down to the cellular level. Let's look at the neuroscience, the wetware of our brains, to understand how memory is physically formed and how it can go wrong. When you form a new memory, a complex series of events takes place in your brain. Key to this process is a seahorse-shaped structure deep in your temporal lobe called the hippocampus. The hippocampus is like a switchboard, taking in sensory information from all over your brain and binding it together into a single, coherent memory. The emotional significance of that memory is often tagged by another almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. This is why emotionally charged memories, whether good or bad, tend to be more vivid. But here's the crucial part. A memory isn't stored in one single place. It's a distributed network of neurons firing in a specific pattern across your cortex. And every time you recall that memory, you are essentially reactivating that neural network. This process is called reconsolidation. And during reconsolidation, the memory is once again malleable. It can be updated with new information, or it can be slightly altered. Think of it like a path in the woods. The first time you walk it, it's faint. The more you walk it, the more defined it becomes. But if you start taking a slightly different route each time, the original path can fade, and a new one will emerge. This process of reconsolidation is essential for learning and adaptation, but it also means that our memories are in a constant state of flux. A tiny error in the reconsolidation process, repeated over years, can lead to significant changes in a memory. So, when someone misremembers the spelling of Berenstain, it could be that the neural pathway for the E spelling has been strengthened over time through repeated incorrect recall, overwriting the original correct pathway. The Mandela Effect, from a neuroscience perspective, isn't a bug in the system. It's a natural consequence of the dynamic and ever-changing nature of how our brains store and retrieve the stories of our lives. Chapter 10. Beyond the Individual. While psychology and neuroscience give us powerful tools to understand the Mandela Effect at the individual level, to truly grasp its significance, we need to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. We need to talk about collective memory. This is a concept developed by the sociologist Maurice Halbwachs, and it refers to the shared pool of memories, knowledge, and information that is held by a social group. This can be a family, a community, or an entire nation. Collective memory is not just the sum of individual memories. It's a social construct. It's the story a group tells itself about itself. This story is shaped by our shared culture, our media, our educational systems, and our political leaders. It's a narrative that helps to create a sense of identity and belonging. For example, the collective memory of a nation might emphasize certain historical victories while downplaying or forgetting its defeats. The Mandela Effect can be seen as a fascinating and often bizarre glitch in the process of collective memory formation. It reveals the moments where the official sanctioned narrative, the one found in textbooks and encyclopedias, diverges from the folk narrative that circulates among the people. The Luke, "I am your father" example is a perfect case study. The official text of the movie is, "No, I am your father." But the collective memory, the shared cultural understanding of that scene, has become Luke, "I am your father." The folk version has, in a sense, become more real, more culturally potent than the original. These divergences happen for all the reasons we've discussed: confabulation, suggestion, schema theory. But when they happen on a mass scale, they become a part of our collective memory. The Mandela Effect shows us that our shared history is not a monolithic, unchanging thing. It is a living, breathing narrative that is constantly being negotiated, contested, and rewritten, not just by historians, but by all of us in our conversations, our jokes, and our shared misrememberings. Chapter 11. Fruit Loops, Febreze, and the Subtleties of Corporate Branding. Let's move from the grand narratives of history and pop culture to something we interact with every single day: corporate branding. A surprisingly large number of the most cited Mandela effects revolve around the names, logos, and slogans of famous brands. And this makes sense. These are things we are exposed to thousands of times, often passively, throughout our lives. Take the cereal Fruit Loops. How do you spell fruit? Many people will swear it's spelled fruit. It seems logical, right? But the actual spelling has always been FROT. This is a classic example of what's called regularization. Our brains have a tendency to smooth out irregularities and make things conform to standard rules. The word fruit is a common English word. Fruit is not. So our brains over time might correct the spelling in our memory to fit the more familiar pattern. The same goes for the air freshener Febreze. Countless people remember it being spelled Febreze with a double E. This is likely due to the phonetic spelling and the association with the word breeze. It just looks and sounds right. The actual spelling, Febreze, is less intuitive. Other famous examples include the shoe brand Skechers, which many remember as Skechers, with a T, and the popular American restaurant chain Chick-fil-A, which some people recall as Chick-fil-A. These corporate examples are particularly interesting because they highlight how our memories are not just passive recordings, but are actively engaged in a process of sense-making. We are constantly trying to fit the information we encounter into logical patterns. And in the world of branding, where names are often intentionally quirky or misspelled, our brain's attempts to fix these irregularities can lead to widespread, shared, and ultimately false memories. It's a testament to the fact that even in the most mundane corners of our lives, our minds are constantly working to rewrite reality to better fit our expectations. Chapter 12. A glitch in the matrix? Okay, we've spent a lot of time exploring the very rational, very scientific, psychological explanations for the Mandela Effect. And for many of you, that might be enough. Case closed. But for a significant portion of the people who experience this phenomenon, these explanations just don't cut it. The memories feel too real, too vivid, too widely shared to be a simple trick of the mind. And this is where we take a leap, a quantum leap, you might say, into the realm of the truly extraordinary. This is the part of the story that proves the Mandela Effect might be real. What if the Mandela Effect isn't a bug in our brains, but a feature of reality itself? One of the most popular and tantalizing theories is that the Mandela Effect is evidence of parallel universes. The many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, a very real and debated theory among physicists, suggests that every time a quantum measurement is made, the universe splits into multiple branches. In each branch, a different outcome occurs. So, there could be an infinite number of parallel universes, each with a slightly different history. According to this theory, the Mandela Effect is what happens when we, for some unknown reason, slide or shift between these parallel timelines. You don't physically move, but your consciousness does. So, you might have grown up in a universe where Nelson Mandela did die in prison, where the Berenstain Bears were spelled with an E, and where Sinbad was a genie. But at some point, you shifted into our current timeline, where history is different. But you still carry the residual memories from your old reality. This would explain why the memories are so vivid and why they are shared by so many people. They aren't false memories. They are real memories from a different, but equally real, reality. Proponents of this theory often point to events like the launch of the Large Hadron Collider at CERN as a possible catalyst for these reality shifts, suggesting that our experiments in high-energy physics might be having unforeseen consequences on the fabric of spacetime. Is it a wild, speculative idea? Absolutely. Is there any concrete, falsifiable evidence for it? Not yet. But it's an idea that captures the profound strangeness of the Mandela Effect, the feeling that the reality we inhabit is not as stable or as singular as we once thought. It opens up the possibility that we are not just misremembering the past, but that we are remembering a past that was once ours, but is no longer. Chapter 13. Critiquing the Extraordinary. The idea of parallel universes is undeniably seductive. It's a grand, epic explanation for a deeply personal and unsettling experience. It makes us feel like we're part of a cosmic mystery. But as the late, great Carl Sagan used to say, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And when we apply a skeptical lens to the parallel universe theory and other fringe explanations, we find that the evidence is, to put it mildly, lacking. This is the part of the story that provides the facts that prove the Mandela Effect is not real, but a product of our own minds. First, the theory of timeline sliding is, by its very nature, unfalsifiable. There is no experiment we can design, no observation we can make that could prove or disprove it. If you remember something differently, a believer can always say you've just shifted from a different timeline. If the evidence contradicts your memory, they can say the evidence shifted too. An unfalsifiable claim is not a scientific one. It's a matter of faith. Second, we have to consider the principle of Occam's razor. This is a problem-solving principle that states that among competing hypotheses, the one with the fewest assumptions should be selected. In this case, we have two competing explanations for the Mandela Effect. One requires us to accept the existence of infinite parallel universes, a mechanism for consciousness to slide between them, and the idea that this process leaves behind residual memories, all of which are purely speculative. The other explanation requires us to accept that human memory is fallible, suggestible, and prone to error, which is a fact that has been demonstrated by over a century of psychological research, and that we all experience in our daily lives. Occam's razor would suggest that the psychological explanation is, by far, the more likely one. Furthermore, the nature of the Mandela effects themselves points towards a psychological origin. Why do we remember a monocle on the Monopoly Man, but not, say, the exact date of the Battle of Hastings being different? Why do we misremember the spelling of brand names, but not fundamental laws of physics? The vast majority of Mandela effects are trivial, pop culture related, or based on common linguistic or cognitive errors. They are exactly the kinds of mistakes we would expect a fallible human brain to make. While the idea of a glitch in the matrix is thrilling, the reality is likely far more mundane and far more human. Chapter 14. Why we are fascinated by the Mandela Effect. So, if the most likely explanation for the Mandela Effect is a combination of cognitive biases, a faulty memory, and the amplifying power of the Internet, why are we still so fascinated by it? Why does this topic continue to generate so many clicks, comments, and late-night conversations? The answer, I think, goes beyond the simple question of whether it's real or not. The enduring allure of the Mandela Effect lies in what it reveals about us. On one level, it's just plain fun. It's a mystery that everyone can participate in. It's a low-stakes conspiracy theory that allows us to play detective with our own past. It's a conversation starter, a way to connect with others over a shared, strange experience. In a world that often feels chaotic and meaningless, the Mandela Effect offers us a tantalizing hint that there might be hidden patterns, a deeper order, a secret narrative unfolding just beneath the surface of our reality. But on a deeper level, our fascination with the Mandela Effect touches upon some of our most fundamental human anxieties. It taps into our fear that we are not in control, that our perceptions might be unreliable, and that our sense of self, which is so intimately tied to our memories, might be built on a foundation of sand. The experience of discovering a Mandela effect can be profoundly disorienting. It's a personal earthquake that shakes our trust in our own minds. And in an age of fake news, alternative facts, and deep-seated political polarization, the Mandela effect feels incredibly relevant. It serves as a powerful metaphor for our times. If we can't even agree on the spelling of a children's book or the line from a beloved movie, how can we possibly hope to agree on more complex and consequential issues? The Mandela effect is a symptom of a larger cultural anxiety about the nature of truth itself. It's a funhouse mirror that reflects our deepest questions about memory, reality, and what it means to share a world when we can't even agree on what that world looks like. Chapter 15. Living with Malleable Memories. We've been on quite a journey together. We've explored the depths of the human mind, the wild frontiers of theoretical physics, and the strange, shared world of the Mandela effect. We've seen compelling arguments that this is all a trick of the mind, and we've entertained the possibility that it is evidence of something far more profound. So what's the conclusion? What are we to make of all this? Perhaps the most important takeaway is this: our memories are not perfect recordings of the past. They are not infallible. They are living, breathing stories that we tell ourselves, stories that are constantly being edited, embellished, and rewritten. And you know what? That's okay. The fact that our memories are malleable doesn't make them meaningless. It makes them human. Our memories are shaped by our creativity, our emotions, our relationships, and our shared culture. They are a testament to the beautifully complex and often messy process of making sense of our lives. The Mandela effect, whether it's a glitch in the matrix or a glitch in our minds, offers us a valuable lesson in humility. It encourages us to be a little less certain, a little more curious, and a little more forgiving of our own and others' recollections. It reminds us that our individual perspective is not the only one, and that our shared reality is a collaborative project. So, the next time you encounter a Mandela effect, instead of feeling disoriented or defensive, I invite you to embrace the wonder of it. See it as an opportunity to reflect on the incredible, mysterious, and ultimately unreliable nature of the human mind. Because in the end, the stories we tell ourselves about the past, whether they are perfectly accurate or not, are what make us who we are. The goal isn't to have a perfect memory, but to live a rich and meaningful life, even if we can't always agree on the details. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive. I hope it's given you a lot to think about. I'd love to hear your own experiences with the Mandela effect in the comments below. What are the ones that really get to you? Do you think it's a psychological phenomenon or something more? Let's continue the conversation. After all, the search for answers is what makes us human. And remember, just because something isn't true doesn't mean it can't tell us something important about ourselves. The past is never where you think you left it. Catherine and Porter.